Usually when we talk about a major corporate shakeup, like a CEO firing his number two, the COO, it makes the business pages.
Right.
Maybe the stock dips a few points, there's a press release, and everyone kind of moves on.
But when the corporation is the world's largest army, and the guy being fired was, well, the second most powerful person in the country.
Yeah, the implications are a little more terrifying than a dip in share prices.
That's putting it mildly. What we saw on January 24th in Beijing, the removal of General Zhang Yuxia, it's arguably the single biggest military shakeup in China in decades. And the sources we have for this deep dive are all trying to answer one really high-stakes question.
Is this just chaos, or is it preparation for war?
Exactly.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at what we're calling the Red Purge. And we've got a massive stack of documents here.
We do. Everything from, U.S. intelligence assessments on Xi Jinping's mindset to deep historical analyses of old Communist Party playbooks.
And our mission today is to make sense of what just happened to General Zhang.
To understand the what and the why, you really have to start with the who. Because Zhang Yuxia wasn't just some guy in a uniform.
Right. Looking at his bio here, he was the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. Now, for those listening who don't, stare at CCP org charts all day, can you frame that for us?
It is the absolute top. The Central Military Commission, the CMC, it controls the entire People's Liberation Army.
The PLA.
Xi Jinping is the chairman. Zhang was his vice chairman. So if Xi is the CEO and chairman of the board...
Zhang was the COO. He ran the military day to day.
He was the highest-ranking uniformed officer in the country, period.
But it goes deeper than just rank, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I keep seeing this word in the source material, princeling.
Yes.
It sounds like something out of, I don't know, a medieval drama, but it has a very specific meaning in Beijing.
It does. A princeling is a child of one of the original revolutionaries, the founding fathers of Communist China.
Okay, so Xi Jinping is a princeling.
And so is Zhang Yuxia. Their fathers were literally comrades in arms. They fought side by side in the 1940s.
So they have blood ties.
Right.
This isn't just a boss firing an employee. This is like severing a multi-generational alliance. That feels personal.
It's deeply personal, and usually that family connection is like an iron shield. You just don't touch the other princelings.
And on top of that, Zhang had something Xi doesn't.
Legitimate combat experience. He was a veteran of the 1979 Sino-Vietnamese War.
Which we should probably note was the last major shooting war the Chinese military fought with ground troops.
That's right. So Zhang wasn't a paper tiger. He'd been in the trenches, literally. He had massive respect from the rank and file.
So for years, he was Xi's right-hand man, his closest military advisor.
He knew what war actually looked like.
Which makes the official announcement so jarring. The Ministry of National Defense confirmed he's under investigation for grave violations of political discipline. And I've read enough of these reports to know that's usually party code for what?
Corruption, yeah. We found a lot of money in your basement.
And the rumors are there, right? Allegations that he was selling promotions, taking bribes.
Absolutely. The Chinese military procurement system is notoriously corrupt. But hold on.
But because corruption in the PLA is like... It's like gambling in Casablanca.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it's happening.
It's a feature, not a bug. So why take him down now?
Well, there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that hinted at something much darker.
You're talking about the nuclear leak rumor?
Yeah. The report said Chinese officers were being briefed that General Zhang was leaking nuclear secrets to the United States. I mean, that's a death sentence allegation.
It is, but we have to be really careful with this one. Because while that's the story being told inside China...
The U.S. side is telling a very different story.
Completely different. U.S. officials, current and former, have gone on the record. They say they've seen zero evidence that Zhang was an asset.
So he wasn't their guy?
They deny he was handing over anything.
Okay, so let's pause on that. If the U.S. says he wasn't working for us, but the CCP is telling its own officers he was a spy, what does that tell you?
It tells you the spy story is probably a tool. A justification.
A political hit.
Think about it. You want to take down a guy like Zhang, a war hero, a princeling, a man the troops love. You can't just say he took some bribes.
Because everybody takes bribes.
It's not enough to ruin him. To make him radioactive so no one dares defend him, you have to paint him as a traitor. You destroy the legend before you destroy the man.
Which brings us to the big fork in the road for our deep dive. If he wasn't a spy, and he was Yi's old family friend, why? Why do this?
Why destabilize your own military?
And the sources seem to split into two main theories here. The first one is psychological. It points right to the man at the top.
Xi Jinping.
Right.
U.S. intelligence analysts are using phrases like extreme level of paranoia to describe his current mindset. He's 72 years old, been in power for nearly 14 years.
And he's firing everyone. It looks like he's seeing ghosts.
And there's a specific political science concept for this, isn't there?
The autocrat's dilemma. Can we unpack that?
Yes, it fits this perfectly. The dilemma is this. As an autocrat, you need strong, competent generals.
Of course. You can't run a war by yourself.
But if a general is too competent, if he's too respected by the troops, like Zhang was, he becomes a threat.
An alternative power center.
Exactly. So it's a catch-22. You need them to be good, but if they're too good, you get paranoid, they'll launch a coup.
And since everyone is lying to you to survive, you never know who's truly loyal.
It just creates this spiral of fear. I mean, look at the body count in the PLA leadership. It's staggering.
I was looking at the data from the source material. Since 2022, Xi has removed 5 of the 6 generals he personally put on the Central Military Commission.
5 out of 6.
And if you zoom out to the Central Committee, the party's broader leadership, it's even worse.
What are the numbers there?
Roughly 34 of the 44 generals who should be there are just gone, ousted or disappeared.
34 out of 44.
That's not a reshuffle, that's a demolition.
It's a decapitation strike on your own organization. It creates that massive vacuum of experience we were talking about.
And this all feeds into the political timeline, right? We're heading towards 2027. Why is that year so important?
2027 is the next party Congress, and the sources suggest she is going for a 4th term.
Breaking all the modern norms, basically cementing himself as ruler for life.
Right. And some analysts speculate that maybe Zhang Yuxia, for all his loyalty, maybe he hesitated. Maybe he questioned the wisdom of breaking succession norms again.
And in an autocracy like that, even a hint of hesitation about succession
makes you an enemy of the state immediately. It's got echoes of Mao Zedong and Lin Biao in 1971.
Lin Biao, Mao's designated successor, his closest comrade in arms.
Until the paranoia set in, and Lin Biao ended up dead in a mysterious plane crash, supposedly fleeing to the Soviet Union. The number 1 purges the number 2.
It's a pattern. So theory 1 is basically Xi is an aging emperor cleaning house to protect his throne.
Even if it wrecks the army's competence in the process. It's chaos born of fear.
And if you're a rival nation, that's the theory you hope is true.
Absolutely. Because a paranoid leader firing his best generals usually leads to disaster on the battlefield.
But there is a second theory, and this one is, well, a lot more chilling.
This is theory 2. The grand strategy.
And it argues this isn't madness at all. It's a very specific, calculated method.
Right. The view here is that we're misinterpreting the signal. The language the party is using to describe this is very specific. They call it removing rot and regenerating flesh.
Regenerating flesh. That sounds painful.
It's meant to. It's a direct callback to the Yan Man period in the late 1930s. This is sacred history for the party.
After the Long March, Mao's forces were broken, living in caves.
And Mao launched this brutal rectification campaign. He purged rivals, enforced absolute ideological purity. He basically broke the party down to build it back up.
And, strictly speaking, it worked. That purified party went on to win the Civil War.
It did. The argument here is that Xi sees the current PLA, with its corruption and its old boy networks, as rot. And he thinks he has to cut it out to save the patient.
There's that other historical parallel mentioned in the briefing that I really want to get into because it explains the risk here so perfectly.
The Stalin comparison.
The Stalin model.
Yes. The sources draw a direct line to Stalin's Great Terror in 1937 and 38. We think of it as just senseless murder, but Stalin purged about 90% of his top generals.
And you see the immediate result in history. The 1939 Winter War against Finland.
Total humiliation. The Soviets were mauled by a tiny Finnish army because their officer corps was gone.
The short-term cost was catastrophic.
Yeah.
But here's the so what that she's probably looking at.
Exactly. By the time the Nazis invaded a few years later, Stalin had reconstituted the brass. He'd brought up a new generation of commanders.
Men like Georgy Zhukov.
A legend. And Zhukov wouldn't have been in charge if the old guard hadn't been wiped out. Right. These new guys were younger, totally loyal because they owed everything to Stalin and they won the war.
So the argument is that Xi is playing the long game. He's willing to accept weakness now, to look weak in 2026, to build a version 2.0 of the military for, say, 2027 or 2028.
Precisely. And think about modern warfare. It's not trench warfare. It's AI, drones, cyber, space.
General Zhang was a hero of a ground war in 1979. He was 74 years old.
Does a veteran of 1970s infantry tactics really understand algorithmic combat?
It's a really fair point. If you're building a military to fight the U.S. Navy with satellites and drones, maybe the old guard is actually an obstacle.
She might want technocrats, younger leaders who are ideologically pure, they only listen to him, and who have no power base of their own. If you promote some young colonel from obscurity, they owe you everything.
Which brings us to the terrifying part of this whole calculation. If he's building a military of yes-men, technocrats, what is he building them for?
You don't take a risk like the Winter War scenario unless you have a very specific war in mind.
You build it for a specific objective, and that leads us directly across the strait.
Taiwan. Everything in these documents points to the timeline. We mentioned 2027 for the Party Congress. Well, Taiwan holds its next presidential election in January 2028.
And the current ruling party, the DPP, the one Beijing hates, is led by President Xi.
If Lai wins re-election, that would be 4 straight terms for the DPP. From Beijing's perspective, the door to peaceful unification is slamming shut forever.
So if the political path closes, the military path becomes the only one left in Xi's mind.
And to launch an invasion or blockade of Taiwan, something that could mean fighting the United States, he needs absolute ideological unity.
He cannot afford a general saying, "Sir, I don't think we're ready," or "Sir, the casualties will be too high."
He needs commanders who will click the button, no questions asked.
And these executioners.
And there's an external factor that might be speeding this up. We have to talk about the Trump factor.
Right. Donald Trump is back in the White House. And we need to be clear, we're not taking sides on U.S. politics here. We're just analyzing how Beijing sees this.
And the sources suggest Beijing perceives a shift. They see a Trump administration as more transactional, maybe more isolationist.
They hear America first and wonder if the U.S. still has the appetite to defend faraway allies.
I noticed one really interesting detail in the timeline on that.
The U.S. National Defense Strategy.
Yes. The new strategy was released, and it focuses heavily on the Western Hemisphere, securing the Americas. It's a move away from forward deployment in Asia.
And when was General Zhang officially removed?
1 day later, just 24 hours after that strategy was released.
Wow. I mean, correlation isn't always causation, but at this level.
It's rarely a coincidence. If Xi believes the global policeman is going off duty in Asia, he might see a golden window of opportunity opening in that 2027-2028 timeframe.
So let's put it all together. You have a maybe distracted or isolationist America, at least in Beijing's view.
You have a Taiwan that refuses to bend politically.
And you have a Chinese military being aggressively purged of anyone who might tap the brakes.
That is the grand strategy theory. It suggests this isn't a regime flailing, it's clearing the decks for action.
It really flips the script, because my default reaction when I hear dictator purges generals is, oh, look, the system is crumbling.
Right. And in the short term, let's be clear, it is weakness. The PLA right now is likely paralyzed by fear. Officers are looking over their shoulders.
If a war broke out this afternoon, they might be in serious trouble.
But Xi isn't planning for this afternoon. He's betting that he can endure this chaos now
to ensure he has a World War II victory force ready for the defining conflict of his rule.
It's a massive gamble. I mean, Stalin barely pulled it off.
So if he's wrong, if he purges competence along with the rot, he's just hollowed out his own military.
He might be creating a military that looks perfect in parades but collapses under the stress of real combat.
But if he's right.
If he's right, and he builds a younger, tech-savvy, fanatically loyal command structure by 2027, then the U.S. and Taiwan are facing a much more dangerous adversary.
It's a terrifying duality. To us, it looks like a regime eating itself. To Xi, it looks like he's detoxifying the system.
We really need to watch who fills those empty seats. The 34 missing Central Committee members, the spot Zhang left open.
Who he puts in those chairs will tell us if he's prioritizing blind loyalty or actual war-fighting capability.
That is going to be the key indicator.
You know, we've covered so much ground. Princelings, Stalin, spy rumors. But before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with one final thought.
I've been thinking about this forest fire analogy. We tend to see these purges as purely destructive.
Right. We see the smoke, the big trees falling like General Zhang, and we assume the forest is dying.
But in nature, a forest fire is also a tool for renewal. It clears out all the dead wood. It lets new things grow, often stronger than before.
So the provocative question is, are we watching a collapse, Or are we watching a controlled burn?
Exactly. What if this purge, which looks like chaos to us, is actually the intense heat required to forge the military that changes the map of Asia?
A controlled burn or an out-of-control wildfire? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, the temperature in Beijing is rising fast.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your eyes on the news, keep watching those empty chairs in Beijing, and we'll catch you next time.